Hi guys, karibuni sana. This is Mathenge from Mamlaka El Chapa Ruaka. I serve here in the with the pastoral team in the discipleship ministry called Nawiri. Yeah, ninawatakia Nawiri for sure. So today I just want us to look at a text of scripture on the parables of Christ. And Christ has many parables that he taught during his time here on earth. And perhaps one of the most nerve-wracking things to do with scripture is just to find the meaning of parables. But perhaps it is not that hard to get the meaning of these fables. And my job here is just to help us get a way of interpreting the parables for the next couple of sessions. So today I want us to begin with a parable that is well known to many of you, but perhaps not to everyone. The parable of the rich fool. Good question. What kind of parable is this? For those who do not know, you find that parable in the book of Luke chapter 12. And we will begin from verse 16. That's where the parable is found. But just for the sake of context, allow me to start from verse 13 and go down all the way to verse 21. If you are there, you can read with me. So we'll just use a very simple technique, which we call inductive study. So we'll just do 3 simple steps. The first one is observation. What does the text say? And then the next one, we call it interpretation. What does it mean? And then finally, application. What is the meaning of this to me? Or what significance does this text have for me? So let's read from verse 13 all the way to verse 21. Luke chapter 12. Verse 13. Someone in the crowd said to him, this is Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." Verse 16. And he told them this parable. The ground of a rich man produced a good crop. He thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." And he said, "This is what I will do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And then I will store all my grain and all my goods." Verse 19. And I'll say to myself, "You have plenty of good things laid up for many years. Take life easy, drink, eat, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool. This very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with anyone who stores up things for himself, but is not rich towards God." The context of this verse, now getting to the interpretation bit of it, is very interesting. That Jesus has met up with this man. And this man tells Jesus, "Teacher, would you talk to my brother that he may divide the inheritance between the two of us?" So you would expect that maybe their dad had died and now there's an inheritance that has been left, and maybe he's the younger brother, and he would like part of the inheritance that the dad left behind. So, and we know these cases of where many people die when they are intestate and people have not divided their wealth. But This guy comes to Jesus and he says, would you help by telling my brother to give me part of the inheritance, seeing that perhaps he had not been left any. But Jesus responds in a very, a manner that we wouldn't expect in our day. He talks to this man and says, who has made me an arbiter between the two of you, or a judge for that matter? Because anyway, when we have matters of dispute, we go to a judge. And Christ is saying, I am not a judge between the two of you. Neither am I an arbiter. I'm not your attorney, if you would understand the meaning of that arbiter in today's context. But why would God do this? It looks like a reasonable request from this guy. The answer is right there. He says, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. Christ is bringing up a very interesting concept. And he's saying, actually, it is not the inheritance that is the problem. It is that inheritance is not yours. It is not you that has that inheritance. And so what you want is to get what is not yours, essentially. And you want me to be the one to adjudicate for you, to be the one to be like a judge and help a bit between the two of you. Christ is not about to do that. And he sees right between this request from this guy. And he says, dude, I am not going to judge between the two of you. A man's life, he says, does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. The thing you should be concerned about, young man, is not how much you get out of your father's inheritance. If you would think it was the father who had passed on. It is not about how much you have in comparison to your brother. And then he gives a very interesting parable to make this very point. Now this man, rich man, he's described as. So he's not lacking in wealth at all. He says, this rich man got a bounty harvest. He has a good harvest this year. But he looks at the grain and he says, oh my goodness, this will not fit in my barns. I need to build bigger barns. I need space for this. I think this is too much. My bank account is hardly enough to hold the kind of wealth that this harvest will bring. He says, I will tear down my barns and I will build bigger ones. What he's doing essentially is amassing wealth for himself. He's already described as a rich man. Notice what he says. He says, you have plenty of good things laid up for years. He's not lacking in wealth, but God has allowed that he would prosper all the more. And now he has much more. And the first thought that comes to this guy is, how can I store up more? And I think that's essentially the problem with this guy. He's a greedy man. He wants more and more and more. And the sin of greed is essentially in its heart this big problem that it cannot be satisfied. This guy is already a rich man. He gets more wealth, and all he's thinking is, how do I accumulate more? Later on, Jesus will ask, this very night, your life will be demanded of you. Then, who will get what you have prepared for yourself? How sad that sometimes on earth we can run after things and we can accumulate wealth and we can work very hard and have our accounts full and keep amassing wealth for ourselves, find more and more resources, buy more land. In Kenya, we have a craze for buying for buying land. And Jesus is asking here, So what will become of all that wealth that you have put up for yourself? And he says, this is the very fate that will meet anyone who is not rich towards God, who stores up things for themselves. Remember what Christ would say later. And he says, actually, it is better that you store treasures in heaven where moth cannot destroy. But we have become a culture where we are obsessed with storing up treasure for ourselves here on earth. I pray that this will be a rebuke for every one of us. That, my God, ask ourselves, how can I store up treasures in heaven? The sin of this man is that all he wanted was to accumulate more and more here on earth. God has given us an opportunity through the service of others, through the service of Him in the church, our resources can be translated to become treasures in heaven. Would you take advantage of that? And on that day, well, he says, your life is required of you today. You will not just leave behind treasures on earth that will not help you, will amount for nothing on that day. But actually, you will have much treasure in heaven as well. That is my prayer for us. And that, I believe, is a prayer of Christ through this parable.